Okay, so good evening, everyone. I hope everybody is able to see me. Can you guys quickly confirm? Am I live? Can you guys see me? Okay, can you guys quickly confirm? Am I audible properly? Okay, perfect. So let me just open the chat section here so that I can reply to the chats. Yes, perfect. So let me go back to Eclipse and yeah. So guys, we'll wait for 2 minutes and sorry for the delay. There was some configuration issue from my side, so the session got delayed, but we'll try to cover whatever we plan. So once again, good evening, everyone. So Subhash is also joined. Hi, Subhash. Thank you for joining. We have Nishant, Mahesh, Mehboob, Vikram, Aya, Vikram, Ishan. Perfect. So the last session, we started with the configuration part. So we have seen how to configure Selenium, right? So what we did, we created a Maven project yesterday. So maybe I will share the screen right now. So what we did yesterday, we created a Maven project, we configured Selenium. So basically we just added one dependency, and with the help of that dependency, we are able to launch our Chrome browser, right? What we did, we also downloaded a Chrome driver. So we were able to start the Chrome session as well. So now we will continue with the same project, and we'll try to invoke different browsers, and we'll see how to interact with the web elements. So those who are asking where I can find the study material, so whatever project we created yesterday, right? So the complete project I already uploaded on iNeuron portal. So just go to their community dashboard, log in, and if you click on the day 4, just go to the resource section and you will be able to see the documents or the files that we have used. Now, let's continue with the same program. So in the last session, we used Chrome driver. Basically, we downloaded manually and we saw, right, how to invoke the browser. So we also saw the pain point that we have to download the browser manually, so driver manually. And again, if tomorrow the driver is getting updated, or let's say the browser version is getting changed, again, you have to keep on upgrading the drivers accordingly. So today we will be using one new dependency which will solve this issue. So let me talk about that as well. So just give me a minute. Let me open incognito and just search for one more dependency called WebDriver Manager. Okay. So if you just see the first one, which is WebDriver Manager, and the main motive or the main intention behind this particular library is to maintain the drivers automatically. Okay. So whether you're working on Windows, Mac, Linux, doesn't matter. Based on the operating system, based on the current browser versions, it will download the drivers accordingly. So whenever you get time, please go through the documentation. It's very useful, very easy, and you can start using it. So what I will do, I will show you how you can use it. So this is the older one. So if you see, as of version 5, the documentation of WebDriver moved here. So let's open the new one. And if you see the same thing, motivation, what is the main motivation of using this? You can see the system.set property that we're using. Now we can avoid that part. So basically you have to use one dependency. Okay. So yesterday we used one dependency for Selenium. We will use one more dependency today for WebDriver Manager. So I will copy this, go back to Eclipse, and let me just open pom.xml and just click on pom.xml file, and let's add a new dependency today. Okay. So you can see the group ID is io.github.Bonnie Garcia, then artifact ID is WebDriver Manager, and now we can start using this. Now, if you want to see how to use it, then they have already given a documentation that how you can use it. Right now, you will see some more annotations like before all, before each, after each, and test. That anyways we will discuss once we move to test ng. As of now, this is the main part that you need to focus is WebDriver Manager .chrome driver .setup. So instead of having this particular statement, what we can do now, we can comment this part and let's start using WebDriver Manager. So just type WebDriver Manager and you will get list of auto suggestions. WebDriver Manager. Yeah. Then you can see we have all the different drivers. So we have Chrome driver, Chromium driver, Edge driver, Firefox. So we will go with the Chrome driver and I will just say setup. This is what you need to do. The moment you save this and execute this program, now you don't need to maintain the drivers. Automatically, it will maintain the drivers for you. So the moment I right click and execute, so you'll see failed to load. This is just a warning. This is coming from SLFA4J, which is basically log4j. This is just a warning. Please ignore this. Now it will start, as you can see, starting Chrome driver, which is the latest version 102.0. something, and it's launching, and it will continue with whatever test you have written. So once the page will load, okay, what it will do, it will simply close it because we have written driver.quit. Perfect. Now let's continue with the further commands. So I will create a new class. Okay, so I will write here WebElements because today we'll see how to deal with WebElements. So I will say WebElement demo. Now I don't want to keep the exactly same WebElement because we already have an interface in Selenium called WebElement. So I've seen a lot of people make this kind of mistake. They create a class name with the same name what is already present. For example, they write WebDriver.java, WebElement.java. These are already existing interfaces available, right? So sometimes you'll get confused. So instead of using the existing same class names or interface name, use the new name. Now, before we move into WebElement, let me quickly talk about few navigation commands, few browser commands, so that you will understand the different methods that we have. Now, I will use some random website because my application loads sometimes very slow. So I will open google.com. Now let me open some more website. Let me try facebook.com. Let me also launch LinkedIn. So basically once your driver is active, right, you can open n number of URL. So it will keep on loading that application in the same browser, just like how we do manually, right? You open one application, then another. In the same manner, it will continue. Now, if you want to start more sessions, what you can do, you just write Chrome driver 1. Okay, this is a new instance that we are creating. And with that instance, whatever you want to do, you can do that. For example, you will notice the first statement, the first few lines, it will open Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, it will print the title, it will close. Now I'm launching a new driver session, which will be driver 1. And with the help of driver 1, I can interact with a new browser window. So let's say this time I want to open twitter.com. I will print the title and I will close it. Let me make it driver 1. So one Java class can have multiple driver instances as well. If I run this, so you'll see the first browser will launch, it will complete the execution, then it will launch the second browser and it will continue with the same. Right now it's not maximizing because we have to write separate method. We need to call a separate method. So first Google, then Facebook, LinkedIn, it will close. Okay. So if you notice, it closed, right? So we are able to maintain, just a second, why it did not print the title. Execute again. So let me read the question in the meanwhile. So we have a question from Amit. Can you please start the cucumber session like the same? Yes, we can do that. It is just we have few more community session planned. Okay. So if you just notice what is happening, it prints the title of LinkedIn, which is this. Now it is not printing the title for Twitter. Okay, we'll see that manually first. Driver1.title. Ideally it should print, but it's not printing. We'll see that if I open twitter.com. It could be because of the weight, because if you see the title is coming. So what we can do, we will be talking about the explicit weight as well, where we can also give a condition wait for the page title. Okay, so right now the moment page is loading, it is immediately closing. We can put a wait, or we can use explicit wait, which is WebDriver wait, and we can wait till the title is not loading. So this is a perfect example that we can take in our upcoming sessions. Okay, so the main motive of showing you this part, that you can have multiple sessions in the same Java class. Now, what about the browser commands? Okay, so when we say browser commands, so again we have browser navigation command. So when we say navigation, so how we use this browser, right? So we click on the back button, we click on forward button, we refresh the browser, right? So this all are coming under navigation commands. So how you can do it? So let's say we have Google, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So at least we have a browser history, right? So we have multiple browser histories. So what if I, after LinkedIn, I want to go back to Facebook? So I can say driver dot, you will see something called navigate. Okay. Now this navigate method will return you a navigation interface. Can you see this? Navigate is a method which will return you navigation. And if I put dot, I can see I have a back, I have a forward, I have a refresh, and I have a to method as well. So let's say if I click on back, like if I call this back method, we are on LinkedIn, so it will go back to Facebook. Again, if I call one more time this back, it will go back to google.com, which is this. Now let's say after Google, again, I want to go back to Facebook, which is, I want to move in a forward direction, right? So I can say navigate dot forward. And again, if I put forward, it will come back to LinkedIn again. So it depends how you want to navigate, because there will be multiple scenarios in your application where you have to navigate in the different URL, which is already you have covered in your session. So instead of opening the URL again, you can go back, forward, and deal accordingly. So let me see a few questions. Vikram Panda says, if we use driver manager, then there's no need to set up driver location as well, right? Yes, correct, Vikram. That is the main intention behind using this particular library. Now, another question by Manoj Bhatt. I'm getting multiple error in pom.xml file when I add Selenium dependency and save. Errors like fail to read artifacts are coming. So Manoj, there could be two issues. One issue, the version that you're downloading, right? Let's say you're using 4.2.2, that is not compatible. So try to degrade. If after degrading all the versions, also if you're getting the same issue, it means you're running behind a proxy. What happens when you download this dependency, right? So it is coming from ambient repository. So if you have some proxy in the between, it sometimes it will block downloading external proxies. So you can set the proxy and then you will not get any issue. Now, how to set proxy? Now, there are two ways to set proxy. So in your Maven, there's settings.xml file. Okay, and there we have a proxy tag. So there you can add the proxy and then you will not get any issue. So first give a try with the downgrading with the version. If you're still facing this issue, then change the settings.xml file, which comes under .m2 folder. Mahesh is, can we say this is a method overloading? No, this is not method overloading. I will talk about method overloading as well. Now let me run this and let me also quickly refresh, because Refresh is also part of navigation command. So driver dot navigate dot refresh. It will be very fast, so please watch it carefully. Okay, so just notice first it will open Google, then it will open Facebook, then it will open LinkedIn. Now it will go back to Facebook, then go back to Google. Yeah, now it will go back to forward, and can you see forward, and after one more refresh. And after that it will close. Since we have removed that driver.quit, so it's not closing. So we need to close it manually. So these are your navigation commands. Now let's say if you want to maximize the browser, you want to do the full screen. Again, we have driver. Okay, so this part you can do the moment you have driver instance, you can call this. So driver dot, you can say we have something called manage. Now here we can manage multiple things. Okay, you can manage the different timeouts. So probably day 4 we will be talking about timeout, if I'm not wrong. So we can manage the windows. When I say windows, basically you can manage a browser window. You can minimize, maximize. You can also call full screen. We can also manage the timeouts, implicit wait, page load timeout, script timeout. And you can also delete or use this cookies part. So add cookie, delete cookies, get cookies. And you can also see, you can also capture different kind of logs. Okay. So I'm using Windows as of now. So Windows dot maximize. So this is called a method chaining, where you are able to call one method, then that method is returning something else. Then you're calling one more method that is returning something else. So let me know if you want me to explain this driver.manage.windows.maximize. I can break down into 4 statements so that you will get a better picture. Because throughout the session, you will be getting this kind of methods: driver.navigate.back, driver.navigate.refresh. But how exactly it is working? Because one method returns the reference or object of another class or interface. So do you want me to cover this? Do you want me to break this one statement into 4? Let me know. Okay. Now we have one question from Ayappa Kumar. What is the difference between WebDriver Manager Chrome Driver create and setup? So Ayappa Kumar, in the, okay, let me show you. So now from WebDriver Manager 5 onwards, what they did, instead of setup, you can also call a method called create. It directly returns the WebDriver instance. So the next line that we are writing, right? Chrome driver code new Chrome driver, that driver will give you immediately. So I will talk about this as well, because right now we are using Chrome driver code new Chrome driver. First of all, I will explain you WebDriver code new Chrome driver. Then we can use the create as well. So if you go with the traditional methods, setup is, it will set up everything. Then you can maintain the drivers accordingly. Now Sam says, hi Mukesh, can we use navigate dot to back forward? See, ultimately, whether you talk about driver.get or driver.navigate to, they both are opening the web page. Okay. So once you have the browser history, you can use back forward again. So whether you go with driver.get or driver.navigate.to will remain same. Why window? Because we have to manage the windows, right? The browser window which is coming. If you want to minimize, maximize, you have to use dot windows. So how to handle 404 of connection to the site which is not private? See, Rohit, when you get a connection is not secure, that doesn't mean it's 404. It means that particular application having some certificate, that certificate is invalid. In that case, we have one option here in Selenium using Chrome options and using desired capability. You can handle the SSL certificate, or I will say the SSL certificate, HTTP certificate which got expired. So I can see many yes. So we have yes from Deepak, Naga, Rishikesh, Ranjit, Pallavi. Okay. So let's see how exactly it works, because this is the base concept. If you don't understand this, sometimes you'll get confusion how this chaining is happening. So if I just break down this into multiple statement, the moment you say driver.manage, you can see it is returning you something called options, right? So if I just type options, can you see we have a dedicated interface called options? Now it will return your reference. So I'm storing into a reference called OPT. You can write whatever you want, but I'm giving OPT. Now if I just type OPT dot, I'm getting this all the method of options interface. Now this interface have with windows, timeout, cookies, logs, and everything. So if I call windows, you see I'm getting another reference called windows this time, which is win. If I put mouse over, okay, so what exactly it is? It's a separate interface again. Now if I say win dot, you can see maximize. So once you get Windows reference, you can call all the method of Windows interface. So manage is returning option is returning Windows. Then from Windows, you're able to call this method. Now, don't you think it's unnecessary? We are basically what we are doing first. We are just a second, storing this into a variable, then using this variable. Okay, I'm calling this method, which is returning me another reference. And using this reference, I'm calling this particular method. You can do that as well, but there's a short way, right? Driver dot manage dot windows dot maximize. So instead of storing a reference on the fly, using that reference, you're calling another method. So whenever you see this concept, it's same. So let me just remove this. Now how to, is that clear? So these three statements is equivalent to driver.manage.windows.maximize. So I will comment this for the time being. Similarly, if you see this navigate, right? So the moment you say driver dot navigate, can you see I'm getting a new reference from navigation? So if you just say navigation, you can see it's coming from Selenium, right? So I will say nav. Now I can say nav dot go back, refresh, forward, and so on. So again, what we did, we tried to so basically this particular method is returning navigation interface, and using this reference, I'm calling this back method. I hope it is clear now. Please give me a quick confirmation. So you will see many times I will be using this kind of syntax. Okay, so now I can see a couple of questions. Monica says, after WebDriver Manager dot Chrome driver setup, can we use? Yes, Monica, why not? See, this is actually what we did. We are creating object of Chrome driver class, right? You can store this reference into WebDriver. So I will come back to this within a few minutes. So this particular statement will simply set up the driver. After that, how you want to access, it's up to you. Perfect. Now, if you want to see the source code, guys, what you can do, see, source code is important. It is important because sometimes you need to understand what methods they have and how we are using. Okay, so do one thing, press Control from your keyboard. If you're using Mac, use Command from your keyboard. Put mouse over on that particular class or method. For example, I want to see the class hierarchy. What is the hierarchy of Selenium? So if I put mouse over, can you see I'm having two options called declaration and implementation. So if I click on declaration, can you see I have a class called Chrome driver class, which is extending another class called Chromium driver. Now, a small disclaimer, when you go with Selenium 3, we have a different hierarchy. And Selenium 3, we don't have Chromium driver. But in Selenium 4, Chrome driver is extending another class called Chromium driver. And it has multiple constructors, okay? So this is actually constructor overloading. So probably in session 3, we'll talk about constructor overloading. Now, if you want to see Chrome driver class, Chromium driver, again, press Control from your keyboard, mouse over, click here. It will take few seconds to download the source code. And now you can see this is another class. So this is a class which is extending another class called remote WebDriver, and it is implementing so many interface. Can you see this? Same way, if I open remote WebDriver, you will see that it is implementing WebDriver. So Chrome driver, Chromium driver, remote WebDriver, and now we have a WebDriver. So can you see the different classes that have between WebDriver and Chrome driver, right? So now we will be using Chrome driver. Now, if you open Chrome driver again, you will find one more interface, which is the parent interface of all interface in Selenium called search context. And it has the limited methods. So that is an interview question as well, that what is the parent interface of Chromium driver or all the classes that we're using. So parent interface of WebDriver also search context. Now here we are going to make a change little bit. Instead of putting Chrome driver, I will change the reference. Okay. So when I say driver now, can you see I have so many methods which is coming from search context, WebDriver, remote WebDriver, Chromium driver, and Chromium driver, then finally Chrome driver, right? So I'm getting all the methods from Chromium driver till search context. But if I change the reference to WebDriver, now I will not get all the methods. I will get only the methods of WebDriver in search context. That is a big change you will see the moment you use Chrome driver equal to new Chrome driver versus Chrome driver equal to new Chrome driver. So in the previous way, you will get all the methods from Chrome, Chromium, remote WebDriver, search, WebDriver search context. But if I use WebDriver driver equal to new Chrome driver, you'll get WebDriver and search context method. Now, if you want to cross check, just put driver dot, and you will see hardly few methods which is coming from WebDriver. Okay, that is the advantage that you will be getting. And once you do cross-browser testing also, right? So this is how we will do. We will maintain our WebDriver instance, and then we'll continue with respect to browser. Okay, makes sense. So from now onwards, we'll continue with WebDriver driver equal to new Chrome driver. And in interviews, if they're asking what is the difference, now you know how to explain. Now, if you want to know again this hierarchy in depth, then I have a whiteboard series where I have explained everything in the detail. Okay, so after the live, I will give you the link in the description. If you still want to go through the this hierarchy in detail, let me know. So we have seen how to maximize the browser, how to navigate, and how to close the browser, right? Now let's see how to interact with the web elements, because that is what we will do today. We'll start interacting with web element. Let me close this. Let me remove everything. I will keep maximized because I need maximize. Now, again, quick questions. Vikram says, sometimes I get socket exception, connection reset when I call driver.close multiple times. I'm calling one after another. So Vikram, whenever you have this kind of issues, okay, because when you have one, right, always go with quit method because it assign null. Just a second, guys. Okay. Sorry guys, there was some emergency call. Yeah, we can continue. Now, in order to interact with web element, what we need to do, we need to use a new method called find element. Now, find element basically accepts a by class. Inside by class, we have locators, which is basically a method in Java. So the moment you find element, you will see two methods. One is called find element, which returns single web element. If you see return type single, but when I use find elements, it returns multiple web elements. So it returns list of web element. So here comes the collection part, because now the list which is coming as a list of web elements, right? It is coming from collection. So as of now, we'll go with the first element, which is first method, which will return single web element. And I will be using a class called a by class here. Now by class having all the static methods. So if you see all the locators right now, we have class name, CSS selectors, ID, link text, name, partial link text, tag name, and XPath. So basically right now you can see 8 locators here that we can use. But from Selenium 4 onwards, we also have something called relative locators. So if time permits, we'll try to cover that. Otherwise, I have already video on relative locators in Selenium 4. If you're interested, please go ahead and watch that video. So let's start with the ID, because you will be getting ID directly. So we have 8 locators. So XPath CSS in detail we'll discuss tomorrow. But today let's see basic locators, and let's start interacting with WebElement. Now what exactly locators are? So locators, as the name says, it will locate the web element. Okay, for example, if you want to locate me in Bangalore, how you will locate me? Definitely you need some reference, right? You need some kind of locators. So you can identify me through my, let's say, phone number. Let's say if you call me, I can tell the location. You can locate me if you know my apartment address or my home address, right? You can locate me in this complete world. You can identify me with my PAN card, Aadhaar card, or driving license, whatever. So these are my locators, right? So some locators will give you direct access to my information. For example, Aadhaar card. So if you know my Aadhaar card number, you will get all the details. But if you know some basic information, you will be getting multiple matching nodes. So all these locators will help you to locate particular web element and return you the web element accordingly. We'll see all these locators one by one. So let's start with the first locator called ID. Now, how to get a particular ID for a web element? For example, if I go back and let me close this incognito. Let's say I want to automate this web application. I will give you the link in the description. You can go ahead, check out. You have the user ID password. Now, suppose I want to log into this particular web application. Now, how can I inspect? Right click on this particular web element, and you can see we have something called inspect, right? Now, the moment you inspect, you will see this developer options. This is actually developer tool. So it will give you the DOM structure. So right now, if I see, this is the one that we have inspected, right? So if you just right click, inspect, this will highlight. It means this particular web element is selected. Now, you can also see one more option here. If you click on it, and if you just click on this, again, it will give you, it's an input tag. So guys, before I start interacting with web element, I want to quickly check with all of you. Are you guys aware of HTML? What is HTML? What is div tag, span tag, input tag, button tag, select tag, and so on? Because if you don't understand, right, then you will struggle with the locators. So basic understanding of HTML is important. Can you guys quickly confirm? So there's one question. Can I learn Selenium in 1 week if I already know Java? See, you can learn Selenium, but it's all about how much practice you do. Because if you spend, let's say, 4 hours in a day or 5 hours in a day, within 7 days, 30 to 35 hours, you must have spent. So that's fine. You can learn. But again, the practice. But at least you will understand the different methods we have, different classes we have. You can learn that. So locations, by using WebDriver drive new cron driver, number of methods we can use will be reduced, right? Exactly. Perfect. Since you guys are already aware, it will be quite easy. Now what I will do, you can see I have a name here, right? So I have a name, I have a, one second. I have a name here, I have ID here, I have a type. So these are basically called attributes. So each HTML tag have single attribute, multiple attribute. So we got 3 attribute this time. So if I take the ID, let me close this drawing. And if I go back to Eclipse, and if I type text username, 1 minute. So this particular web element, like find method, will return you a separate web element. Okay. So each time you use find element will return you a web element. So if you put mouse over, can you see web element, it will return. And it will find the first web element using the given method. Now, before we start, you have to also understand this particular documentation because it will help you to understand what this method accepts, what it will return, what kind of exception it will throw. Because if you don't understand what exception it will throw, again, you will be spending a lot of time on the debugging part. So this is how you have to read. This is the package name. This is the parameter it will accept. This will be the return type. Okay, so parameters is by locator, the locating mechanism. What it returns, the first matching element on the current page. Just remember this keyword for first matching, because let's say if you have given one ID and this ID is matching with 10 web elements. So it will give you the first matching node, and it throws no such element exception if no matching elements are found. For example, if you try to give Mukesh, if Mukesh does not exist, it will throw you no such element exception. So as of now, I will store this into web element. I will say this is my username. So you can see, right? I imported. Now, once I got the web element, now I can interact with this web element. I can do any activity. For example, if I say username dot, you can see the list of methods, right? So these list of methods are coming from web element interface. So all these methods like clear, get text, send keys, get attribute, get CSS values, get DOM attribute, dot property, get rectangle, get location. All of that is coming from web element. We also have something called is displayed, is enabled, is selected, right? So let's start with this is displayed. Obviously, if this element is displayed, it will return you true. So if you want, you can store into a variable. But as of now, I will print the status, which will obviously return me true. What if I say username dot is enabled? It will return me true and false, right? So in our case, it's enabled, so answer will be true. What about this guy? Is selected. So if you see, this is applicable whenever you have radio button and checkboxes. So whether it's selected or not, right? So this method will be applicable for radio button checkboxes. For this, it's not required. Now after that, I want to type something. So I will say username dot send keys. So in the send keys, whatever I want to type, I can type here. So first we have to identify the web element, then check the state, and then we are typing. If you don't want to capture the state, perfectly fine. It depends on your test requirement, depends on what kind of validation you want to keep. But if you don't want to keep any validation, it's fine. You just say send keys and you can continue. Let me run this. Just a second. You can see it maximized. Okay, I have not changed the URL, I guess. Just a second. Can you see? I have not even given the URL. So that's a very silly mistake from my side. So I have to provide the URL. So open the browser, maximize. After maximizing, I will open the URL. Let's run it once again. Okay, maximize. See, it did type. It typed admin, which is what the main username. And if I come back to Eclipse, you will see true and true because right now this username is displayed plus it is enabled as well. Now, if you don't want to do all this, you can also use the same thing. Like instead of doing that, if you just want to type and continue, say driver.findElement by .id, pass the ID. In our case, it's text username, right? And I can say .send keys. So instead of doing this, you can do in one line as well. But here you are not putting any, I will say the statement, like any validation or any state capture, just you're entering. Fine. Now I want to show you one more part. Let's say if I type Mukesh here. So obviously Mukesh is not available, right, as an ID. So it will throw you one exception. You will get exception trace, and then you have to see the exception and fix it accordingly. So let's see how to read the exception so that you can fix them, because reading the exception is more important, because the moment you start, right, you will be getting a lot of exceptions and you should know how to read them. So right click, run as the application. Okay, you say it started, it maximized, it is loading, and obviously it is not typing. Okay, and if I go back here, can you see a lengthy exception? This is called exception trace. So it is giving you the complete information that how the exception is getting propagated, in which exception you're getting. So if you see line number 34, this is the main. So you have to always start from the reverse order, like from which statement the exception is coming. In our case, the exception is starting from line number 34. So if you see this guy, if I click on it, I will get to know that this line have particular issue. And if you try to read this, it says this is how the exception is propagating. It initially started from WebElement, then remote WebDriver, then element location, and so on. You don't need to go through all of this line, and then come straight and you will find no such element exception. It says it is not able to find the locator, that particular element, and it is getting failed. No such element, it's straight away, it is not able to locate. Okay, and if I show you this exception, there's a beautiful description available for this. If you see the documentation, so we have the same exception in Java as well. So I will be checking Selenium exception. The reason I'm showing I want to show the exception hierarchy, because that is also one of the interview question. That what is the Selenium hierarchy, which is the parent class of no such element exception, and so on. So now if I show you the documentation, open this selenium.dev. So don't get scared when we're getting exception, try to fix it. Now this is the exception hierarchy that we have. Once again. Yeah. So This is the the main exception that we got, right? Now the parent exception of this exception is not found exception. So under not found, again, you will find multiple exceptions like alert not found exception, frame not found exception. Maybe I will just show you this, they will get a better picture. The parent class of this is WebDriver exception. So if in interview somebody is asking what is the base class of all the exception, is WebDriver exception. Obviously we have some more in the middle, but the base class of all the exception in Selenium is WebDriver exception. It's a child class of runtime exception, and obviously we have exception, then throwable and object. So whenever you're getting this exception, you can see it is thrown by find element whenever there's a no element found. Okay, so if you want to see not found exception, click on it. Okay, can you see multiple exceptions? So we have no alert present exception, no such context exception, no such window exception, no such element exception, no such frame exception, and so on. We also have no such shadow root exception. Okay, so I will change it back to txt username. Is this concept clear to everyone? Please give me quick confirmation. So one question from Vinod, is it possible to manage automation testing work without experience, only learning? See, Vinod, before you start joining or before joining, what you can do is start automating a couple of applications from your side. Because at the end of the day, you will be automating the same, web applications or API or mobile, whatever it is. So at least try to automate from your end first, because only the locators will change, right? And if they're using framework, then obviously framework will change, but the automation core concept will remain same. So answer is yes. Manoj says, what is the difference between selected and enabled? They both are totally different, Manoj. Selected is basically when you have radio button in checkboxes. So whether we have radio button and checkbox there, we get check selected or not. So if radio button is selected or checkbox is checked, it will return you true, otherwise false. Enabled is like for each and every web element. So enabled will be applicable for radio buttons as well, right? It's basically for web elements. Naga Lakshmi says, can you explain implicit wait, explicit wait? So Naga, we are just Lakshmi, we are just starting. Okay, so probably day 4 we will be talking about implicitly wait. There's one question from Krishna. Find element and find elements are from search context. So can we say that these are the methods also from of WebDriver as well? They are overridden. So basically, Krishna, what is happening? Search context have few methods. WebDriver is extending, right? So they don't have implementation at all. So main implementation is happening in the subclasses. So whenever you have interface, it means that method is getting overridden. So each and every method of interface is getting override. Now let's quickly at least log in. So now in order to do the password, if I click on inspect, okay, if I click on this arrow icon, again inspect the password field, you can see we have a name, we have ID, we have autocomplete. We have already seen the ID, right? Let me take name this time. And you can go with ID as well, because in this application both are same. I will go with name so that at least I can show you one more locator. Driver.find element by name. And now I will use again send keys, and password is admin123. Admin123. Now we have a button again, which is login. So if I try to inspect this, you can see I have this time type, which is submit, class, which is equal to button, ID, value, and so on. So you can go with name, you can go with ID. Today we'll talk about only 2 locators. Tomorrow we'll talk about the remaining 6. Let me take ID again. So driver dot find element by ID, and I will say dot click. So click is a method, and again, if you put mouse over it, click mouse over on the click method, you'll get a lot of information about click. I want to highlight one very important part, that this particular click method throws stale element reference exception when if the element is no longer exists as initially defined. For example, the moment you clicked on a button and now the page got refreshed, right? So some element will get detached from the DOM. So whenever you get this kind of situation, you will get a stale element reference exception, and it happens because of the click. And if click is causing the page load, then you will get stale element reference exception. Now, there's one more thing, that there are some preconditions before click, that element should be visible. Visible means it is available, it should be in the DOM, plus it should have a positive width and height. It means it should be displayed in the DOM, plus it should be visible on the screen with positive X and Y coordinate. Anyways, it's available right now. So the moment I click, call this click method, it should click. Now it's loading. Yeah. So it will maximize admin 123. Clicked on login, and you can see, and you see we have a dashboard page now. Now, how to validate the title, how to validate whether we're on the landing page or not, what are different ways we can validate. We will see all of that in upcoming sessions. But today, at least understand how to inspect, how to get the basic attributes. Do not go to expert CSS as of now, because anyways, we are going to discuss tomorrow. But just understand everything in detail. Okay, now if you want, you can click on it and click on logout. This you can take as part of assignment, that I did the login. Now you just try with the logout as well. Let me read a couple of questions. Krishna, you got my answer, right? Can you share the reference link and resource in iDriver portal? Yes, Sam, each and everything that I'm covering, I will put everything in the iDriver portal. So if you have already enrolled to the course, right, you will go to the day 5, click on resources, you will find all the links. Okay, what is the return type of find element and find elements? Rishikesh, I guess you joined late. The return type of find element is single element, web element. Find elements will return list of web elements. Okay. Atul says, what will be the more ideal way to learn Selenium? Learn Java first, then start learning Selenium. See, Atul, if you go parallelly, it's fine. If you learn Java first and then learn Selenium, that is also fine. Depends, are you able to connect the dots or not? Okay, ideal way, learn first Java, then Selenium. Or go parallelly also, at least whatever topic we're covering. Make sure you know that topic, how to create classes, how to create methods. But ideal way, first Java, then Selenium. Lakshmi says, may I know the timing? Yeah, timing will remain same tomorrow as well, same 7 p.m. And yesterday I got a couple of questions related to the new batch which I'm starting. So this is the link, guys. In case if you want to start your journey with JavaScript, automation testing with JavaScript, then I have a new course which is coming from 16th of July. And this is the course price. It will go for 5 to 6 months. We are covering a lot of different things. We are starting with JavaScript, then we are covering Cypress end to end, then we are covering Playwright as well. Okay, API testing also we will touch upon using Cypress, a Playwright, complete Playwright, and then we are also going to cover a new tool called WebDriver IO. It's not a tool, it's a framework. So we are going to cover Cypress, WebDriver IO, and Playwright. So there's the course fees. In case you are interested in JavaScript as well, let me know. The course fees is this, but you will get additional 10% off if you apply my coupon. which is Mukesh Otwani 10. So hard date will cost you 3,600 rupees. It's a weekend batch, so you can plan accordingly. Okay, now let me see one or two questions, then we will continue tomorrow. Samantha says, hi Mukesh, I did the same thing, but I'm getting no class dev found error. What would be the reason? Samantha, what I will do, I will export this project as a zip file. You can import and just execute it. If you still get the same issue, we'll connect. Playwright with Java, Playwright with JavaScript, which is better to learn for someone who is working on Selenium with Java. So Ishan, if you talk about a Playwright, right, nowadays, see the base is JavaScript, if you talk about for Playwright. But since now Selenium also supports multiple languages, right? Selenium supports JavaScript, Python, C#, and JavaScript as well. So which one you are using right now with Java, right? Because of the market demand. So if you talk about Playwright also, right now many companies are using Playwright with JavaScript. So if you want to get started, go Playwright with JavaScript. But slowly company will also adopt with Java and Python as well. Perfect. So let me take one more question, then we will end our session. Aya says all the videos and the training uses Excel as data provider. Can we use JSON or YAML? So I see the main purpose of data provider is to take data from different sources. It's not mandatory that you have to take from Excel. Since we use Excel most of the time for test data, we cover it. But if you want to use JSON, you can do that. There are a lot of videos available for JSON as well, for YAML as well. YAML, I guess, less videos, but JSON, CSV, and database, a lot of videos are available. Okay. Ranjit says, how much is the fees? 4,000 after discount, 3,600 rupees. I will give you the link. And if you apply coupon code, 3,600. Perfect. Okay, that's all from my side, guys. So please practice this, try the logout scenarios. You will get all the resources in the resources tab, and we'll continue from tomorrow. Yeah. So thank you so much for joining, and see you tomorrow. Bye.